Welcome to Boring History for Sleep, where we tuck you gently into the slow, strange corners of the past, the parts no one talks about, because honestly, they're just too exhausting to glorify. Tonight, your role is not glamorous. You're not a Roman general or a philosopher sipping wine in the forum. No, you're something stickier. You are a Roman orgy planner, and your day has just begun. But before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you listening from? And what time is it for you? Is it midnight in Montreal? 3 a.m. in Sydney? Or are you sneaking in a nap at 2 in the afternoon with a fan humming beside you? If it's chilly where you are, pull that blanket up under your chin. Let your shoulders drop. Maybe curl onto your side like you're wrapped in a toga. And if it's warm, crack a window, turn on a soft fan, let the breeze wash over you like a lazy Roman afternoon. And if you're enjoying these sleepy journeys through dusty corners of history, leave a comment below, even just a simple, still awake, or bring back the peacock. We read them all. Now take a deep breath. This city is ancient. The wine is questionable. And the orgy starts in less than 12 hours. Let's begin. You wake with the roosters of the Aventine. You wake with the roosters. Not elegant ones, not majestic marble statue-worthy birds, but scruffy, annoying creatures that live just past the neighbor's crumbling wall. One of them sounds like it's dying every time it crows. It might be. Light creeps in through the shutters, pale and reluctant. You lie there for a moment, listening. Pigeons shuffle on the roof tiles above. Far below, someone's already yelling about bread. Somewhere in the alley, a bucket clatters. Rome is waking up, groaning and glorious. Your mattress is thin and uneven, stuffed with straw and regrets. You shift slightly, and it crunches. Your back aches in that familiar, I forgot to stretch after hauling amphory sort of way. You are not a noble. You are not rich. You are something far more complicated. You are an eventus curator de nacht privata, which is just a fancy way of saying you plan orgies. Not public banquets. Not respectable saturnalia. Not even slightly scandalous poetry readings. You plan the secret, elaborate, wine-soaked, incense-stick evenings that take place behind expensive doors with locked atriums and more cushions than morals. And this morning, you have about 12 hours to plan one of the biggest private gatherings of the season. The host is Gaius Petronius Maximus, a senator with poor impulse control and even worse taste in musicians. His villa overlooks the Tiber, which is impressive, but also means everything smells faintly of river mold. His request came yesterday, scribbled in messy ink and sealed with purple wax. Make it decadent. Make it tasteful. And absolutely no goats this time. The word decadent you can manage. Tasteful is trickier. And the goats, that was one accident. One time. 4 months ago. You still hear about it. You swing your legs over the edge of the mattress. The tiles are cold, as always. You reach for your tunic, which is draped over the small stool beside the bed. It's not clean, not exactly, but it smells better than your sandals. You sniff it. Acceptable. You pour water into the ceramic basin, splash your face, and breathe. Your reflection in the water is tired. You look like someone who hasn't had a full night's sleep since the consulship of someone irrelevant. Today's plan requires precision. You need 17 scented oil jars, 6 musicians, 2 decent, 1 reliable, 3 dramatic, 40 couches, 12 servers who won't get distracted mid-shift. 1 trained peacock or, failing that, something shiny with feathers. A fire eater named Titus Flame. You still don't know his real name. 3 crates of pomegranates. A mime who swore he'd stay sober this time. And that's just a short list. You sigh. Deeply. Philosophically. In a city that feeds on spectacle, you are the invisible architect of indulgence. You keep the chaos from unraveling. You know where to get cinnamon at short notice, which dancer has sprained an ankle, and which baker owes you a favor involving very specific honey nuts. You open the shutters. Rome breathes out. Smoke curls up from a dozen breakfast hearths. A donkey brays. You hear a couple arguing 2 stories below, something about figs. You don't listen closely. There are always figs. The sun is rising slowly over the rooftops, gold and lazy. Somewhere in the distance, a lyre is being badly tuned. It might be one of your musicians. You hope not. You wrap your belt tight and head for the door. There's a whole city of tiny disasters waiting to happen. And somehow, it's your job to make them look like pleasure. You reuse the oil and hope no one notices. The scent of jasmine and rose lingers in the warm morning air as you stand over the cracked marble basin in the atrium. Your fingers hover above the remaining jars of scented oil, precious, expensive, and dangerously low. The rich, fragrant oils are the secret glue that holds these evenings together, disguising the sweat and desperation lurking beneath the silk sheets and golden cups. You lift one nearly empty jar and examine it carefully. The label is worn, smeared with a faint ring of wine, and you can tell the oil inside has lost its potency. Yet, your only choice is to reuse what you have. You add a few drops of fresh jasmine from a hidden bottle and stir the mix with your fingers. You hope no one will notice the subtle difference. It's a gamble, but you've pulled off riskier tricks before. The slaves shuffle in, burdened with heavy amphorae of wine and crates of fruit, their faces marked with exhaustion and the faintest hint of rebellion. You give them sharp instructions to move swiftly but quietly. The guests will arrive soon, and the first impression must be perfect. As they place the crates down with soft thuds, you take a deep breath and count the crates, 3 full of pomegranates, their ruby seeds glistening like forbidden jewels, ready to be scattered across marble tables and soft couches. Your eyes flicker toward the musicians, who are already tuning their instruments with a mixture of impatience and showmanship. 2 lyre players exchange a knowing glance, one fiddling nervously with his strings while the other taps his fingers rhythmically on the wooden frame. Nearby, the flute player sneezes, a bad omen, you think, but you push the thought aside. The singers rehearse quietly, their voices low and wary, each jockeying for attention in the chaos to come. Managing egos is almost as important as managing wine. You glance at your scroll, a meticulously handwritten list that feels more like a map of impending disasters than a guide. 40 couches must be arranged precisely, each with the right number of cushions, soft ones, firm ones, some embroidered with gold thread, others faded and threadbare. The balance of comfort and opulence is delicate. The wrong cushion in the wrong place could spark whispers and dissatisfaction. Guests will notice. They always do. The servers are next on your mind. 12 strong, but unreliable. You've warned them more than once to keep the wine flowing without overindulging themselves. Last time, Marcus the Tall One passed out before the midnight toast, causing an embarrassing gap in service and several ruined goblets. You mentally rehearse their positions, reminding yourself which corners to watch closely. Distraction is your best defense against disaster. You walk through the villa's gardens, checking on the strange centerpiece of the evening, the peacock. The bird preens itself, feathers shimmering with unnatural colors beneath the morning sun. It's more show than substance, but its presence is crucial, a living symbol of luxury, decadence, and a subtle threat. If the peacock cries out during the orgy, it's a signal for the next phase of the evening. You remind yourself to keep it calm and well-fed. The fire-eater, Titus Flame, arrives late as usual, his face streaked with soot and amusement. You don't know his real name, and he seems to prefer it that way. His act is the one wild card, a dangerous distraction that keeps even the most unruly guests entertained and, more importantly, out of trouble. You remind him of the timing and the cues, hoping he won't get carried away with his flames. As the sun climbs higher, your mind swirls with endless details, where the slaves will bring in fresh oil lamps, which perfumes must be refilled, how the servants will navigate the labyrinth of the villa without interrupting delicate conversations or startling nervous guests. Every moment of this night will be a fragile dance, a balance of anticipation, indulgence, and chaos barely held at bay. You pause for a moment, hands resting on the cool stone of the atrium wall, and wonder what keeps you here. Why dedicate your life to planning these secret, decadent evenings that promise pleasure but deliver exhaustion? Perhaps it's the small moments, the soft flicker of candlelight, the muted laughter slipping through the curtains, the fleeting sense of control in a world spinning wildly out of your grasp. You don't have the luxury of rest. Not yet. There are still 12 hours to prepare, dozens of moving parts to manage, and a dozen or more guests whose desires and secrets will fill the night with whispers and chaos. So you refill the oil jars, adjust the cushions one last time, and steel yourself for the evening to come. Because in Rome, decadence is a duty, and you are its reluctant architect. You bribe a perfumer with leftover dates. The villa's corridors still hum with the lingering echoes of laughter and conversation from earlier in the evening. Yet now, as the night deepens, the world narrows around a small, fragrant chamber tucked behind heavy silk curtains, where the art of scent is crafted and secrets are traded with equal care. You hold in your hand a small, worn leather pouch filled with leftover dates, those rich, sticky fruits that were once prized delicacies in Roman markets. Not much to a nobleman, perhaps, but to the perfumer, whose craft relies on rare and costly ingredients, these dates are a treasure, a gift that opens doors and loosens tongues. The perfumer is a wiry man, his hands stained with resins and powders, his eyes sharp beneath a mane of unruly hair. His workshop smells of amber, myrrh, and crushed blossoms, the heady fragrances of 1,000 unseen flowers woven together in delicate balance. His shelves sag under the weight of tiny vials filled with oils, balms, and tinctures, each promising to transform a mere mortal into a goddess or god. You approach cautiously, aware that every word and gesture here is a thread in a delicate game. The perfumer's gaze flickers with suspicion at first, but the sight of the dates softens his expression. These aren't just any leftovers. They are the finest fruits from a recent harvest, their sweetness preserved despite the passage of days. With a careful smile, you extend the pouch. For you, master of scents, perhaps this will inspire your next masterpiece. His eyes gleam as he accepts the gift, fingers brushing over the dates with reverence. You understand the language of gifts well, he replies. What is it you seek in return? You lean closer, lowering your voice to a conspiratorial whisper. A new fragrance. Something unheard of, intoxicating, one that will mark me as a patron of power and taste. But more than that, I need information. Who visits your workshop under the cover of night? What whispers do your scents carry? The perfumer nods slowly, his mind already racing through his knowledge. Secrets linger in these walls, as do those who seek them. I smell the desperation of a senator whose ambitions outpace his allies, the fear of a courtesan caught in a dangerous game, and the cold calculation of a merchant with debts to settle. You press your advantage, inquiring further about the delicate alliances and betrayals the perfumer's nose detects. Each detail is a piece of a puzzle, a map through the treacherous social labyrinth you navigate nightly. As the perfumer begins mixing oils and resins, his fingers move with practiced ease, blending scents that speak of power, seduction, and danger. The air thickens with the aroma of wild roses, frankincense, and a hint of something darker, perhaps a rare spice from the farthest reaches of the empire. You breathe in deeply, feeling the fragrance seep into your skin and soul. This scent will be your armor and your invitation. With it, you will move among Rome's elite not as a mere guest but as a force to be reckoned with. The perfumer leans back, satisfied with the blend, and with a subtle nod you understand that your pact is sealed, not just with oils and fruits, but with trust and unspoken promises. Leaving the workshop, the dates now lighter in your pouch and the new fragrance clinging to your robes, you feel the night's possibilities unfurl before you like a delicate blossom, each petal hiding a secret, a danger, or an opportunity. You interview a flute player with an attitude. The distant melody of a flute drifts through the villa's corridors, a sound both haunting and provocative. It weaves through the night air like a sly whisper, drawing attention and stirring emotions beneath the polished veneer of civility. This music isn't just entertainment, it's a message, a coded language that only the attentive can decipher. You find yourself near the open doorway of a small chamber where the source of this tune waits. A young flute player with a spark in his eyes and a swagger in his step that commands more respect than his slender frame might suggest. His name is Marcus, known throughout the city not only for his skill but for his sharp tongue and unyielding attitude. As you approach, Marcus pauses his playing, eyeing you with a mixture of curiosity and challenge. His fingers rest lightly on the delicate wooden instrument, calloused from years of practice but nimble and sure. The flickering torchlight dances across his features, highlighting the defiance etched in his brow and the mischievous curl of his lips. "You want to know what I think?" he says, voice low and laced with sarcasm. "Most people just want me to play. If you want to hear what I have to say..." You smile gently, recognizing the defense mechanism of one who has learned to protect himself in a world ruled by patronage and power. "I'm not most people," you reply. "I want to understand what lies beneath the music, the stories, the secrets, the truths no one dares speak aloud." Marcus narrows his eyes but gestures for you to sit. His attitude is a challenge, but also an invitation to prove your worth. As you settle into the shadow chamber, he begins to speak, not just in notes, but in words that reveal the complex tapestry of life behind his art. He tells you about the nights spent playing in smoky taverns where coins are scarce and tempers flare. About the nobles who hire him, seeking to impress guests or mask uncomfortable silences with his melodies. He describes the delicate balance he must maintain, pleasing patrons without compromising his own soul. "But it's not just about music," Marcus admits, leaning forward. "It's about what you hear between the notes, the whispered plans, the stolen glances, the coded messages. I'm not just a musician, I'm a listener. I gather information, piece together the puzzles that others miss." His stories unfold like a vivid fresco of the city's undercurrents. Alliances forged in back rooms, betrayals hidden behind polite smiles, ambitions burning quietly beneath layers of deception. He speaks of a senator who frequents the villa with more than political intentions, of a courtesan whose loyalties are as shifting as the wind, and of merchants whose fortunes are built on secrets darker than the night itself. You ask about his attitude, the sharp edge in his voice and the fire in his gaze. Marcus shrugs, a faint smile breaking through his defiance. When you live on the edge, you learn to protect yourself. Attitude is armor. As the night stretches on, the flute's melody resonates, soft, haunting, laced with notes of longing and warning. You realize that Marcus's music is more than sound. It is a living narrative, a thread weaving through the villa's tangled web of desire and danger. Before you leave, he presses a small token into your hand, a carved bone whistle, simple but powerful. If you need me, blow this. But be warned, not all music soothes. You tuck the whistle away, feeling the weight of its promise. The flute player's attitude, his stories, and his gift are now part of your arsenal in navigating the night's shifting tides. You visit the fabric stall that smells like goat. The bustling market near the city's edge is a riot of colors, sounds, and scents, a sensory overload that somehow blends into the vibrant pulse of Roman life. Traders shout their wares, children dart between crowded stalls, and the clatter of carts on cobblestones creates a steady rhythm beneath the lively hum of conversation. Among this chaotic tapestry, one particular stall draws your attention, not for its vibrant cloth or fine dyes, but for an unusual, unmistakable scent that curls around it like a stubborn fog, the unmistakable odor of goats. The fabric stall is run by an aging merchant named Lucius, whose weathered face and nimble fingers speak of decades spent amid bolts of cloth and tangled threads. His wares range from coarse homespun linens to delicate silks dyed in rich, vibrant hues. Yet it's the peculiar aroma that marks his stall, a mix of the goat's musk mingling with faint hints of herbs and leather, an acquired scent that some might find off-putting, but to you it feels oddly grounding, a reminder of the raw, unvarnished world beyond the polished marble and scented villas. You approach Lucius with a careful eye, knowing that beneath the rough exterior lies a man with knowledge as valuable as the finest thread. His sharp gaze flickers up, assessing you as one might a bolt of cloth, measuring texture, strength, and worth. Looking for something special? He asks, voice gravelly but inviting. You nod, explaining your need for fabrics both luxurious enough to impress and sturdy enough to withstand the unpredictable demands of your unusual nights. Lucius chuckles, a deep sound that seems to shake the very air. I've got silks that would make a senator weep with envy, he boasts, pulling out a shimmering bolt dyed in deep indigo, its surface catching the sunlight like liquid night. But also the kind of wool that'll keep you warm through the coldest winters. And yes, he adds with a wink, some of it carries the scent of my goats, nature's own perfume. His humor masks a deeper wisdom. As you inspect the fabrics, you learn that the scent isn't a flaw but a sign of authenticity. These textiles come from remote mountain regions where goats roam free, their presence integral to the quality of the wool. The smell, though strong, is a mark of the fabric's journey, from the wild hillsides to the bustling market stalls. Lucius leans in, lowering his voice. There's more to these fabrics than meets the eye. Certain dyes hold secrets, powders that can stain, scents that can distract, and threads woven with hidden messages. Traders use them for codes, lovers for clandestine signals. Your interest sharpens. You ask about the latest rumors, any secret deals or whispered plots connected to the fabric trade. Lucius's eyes gleam as he recounts tales of smuggled goods hidden within bolts of cloth, of messages stitched in invisible ink, and of merchants doubling as spies for rival factions. He pulls out a small piece of finely woven cloth, soft as a whisper, dyed a subtle shade of crimson. This one came from a distant province. Its scent carries a hint of jasmine and danger. It's been said that those who wear it find themselves entangled in affairs not their own. You accept a length of fabric, its scent mingling with the night air, a tangible reminder that even the simplest objects in Rome can carry layers of meaning and risk. As you leave the stall, the aroma of goats lingers on your hands and cloak, a curious badge of your venture into this strange and intricate marketplace. The fabrics are more than mere cloth. They are threads in the vast tapestry of intrigue and survival that defines your nights. You explain orgy etiquette to a confused gladiator. The villa's grand hall is alive with flickering torchlight, the mingled scents of sweet wine, perfumed oils, and sandalwood incense swirling thickly in the warm air. Music floats from distant chambers, harps, lyres, and the occasional rhythmic pounding of drums, setting a hypnotic pulse that syncs with the rapid heartbeat of anticipation. Tonight's gathering is unlike any other, a labyrinth of social rituals and unspoken rules where the stakes are as high as the pleasures are intense. Amid the crowd, you spot him, Gaius, a young gladiator recently granted his freedom but still rough around the edges. His broad shoulders and battle-hardened muscles mark him as a man forged in the brutal sands of the arena, but his wide eyes betray a clear confusion. The villa's decadent atmosphere is a world apart from the blood and sand he knows. And now, standing awkwardly near a group of elegantly dressed guests, he clutches a goblet of wine with uncertain fingers, clearly out of place. You approach him with a knowing smile. Gaius, isn't it? You look like you could use a guide. He glances at you, relief flickering behind his guarded expression. I'm honored. But I'm not sure I understand the, how do you say, the rules here. You nod, understanding that this is more than just etiquette. It's a delicate dance of power, desire, and discretion, a social arena as complex as any battle ring. First, you begin gently. Remember that consent is everything. Unlike the arena, here, every touch, every glance must be mutual and welcome. If someone pulls away, respect their space without question. Gaius frowns slightly, processing the idea. In the arena, you fight until one falls. Here, it is different. Very different. You agree. Here, it's about connection and negotiation, not conquest. The guests expect discretion and subtlety. Loud boasting or aggressive advances will only mark you as uncouth. You explain the unspoken language of gestures, the light touch on a wrist as an invitation, the lingering eye contact that speaks volumes, the way certain seats or cushions signify status and preference. You point out the attendants moving gracefully through the crowd, their role not only to serve but to subtly steer conversations and encounters, ensuring harmony and safety. Dress matters too, you add, glancing at Gaius's still somewhat crude tunic. You'll want to loosen your armor for tonight, wear something softer, something that invites touch but also signals respect. Gaius looks down at his hands, calloused and scarred from years of combat, and then back at you with a slight, appreciative smile. I never thought there was so much to learn beyond the fight. You nod, recognizing the transformation underway. It's a different kind of strength. Here, you wield charm and patience instead of the gladius. Your weapons are words, glances, and presence. You guide him through the initial interactions, how to greet guests with a subtle bow, how to respond to compliments without arrogance, and how to read the room for shifts in mood or tension. You emphasize the importance of humility and attentiveness, qualities often overlooked in the brutal world he left behind. As the night deepens, you watch Gaius slowly shed his confusion, his posture easing, his eyes gaining a spark of confidence. He learns to listen, to the music, to the unspoken signals, to the rhythms of conversation and desire. At one point, a noblewoman approaches, her eyes sharp and assessing. Gaius hesitates but remembers your advice, offering a respectful nod and a gentle smile. She responds in kind, her interest piqued not by his strength alone but by his newfound grace. Later, as you observe from a discreet distance, you feel a quiet satisfaction. You've helped forge a new kind of warrior, one who understands that victory here is measured not by blood spilled but by connections made and respect earned. The villa continues to pulse with life around you, but in this corner, a gladiator learns the art of the social dance, a dance as complex and vital as any battle fought under the blazing sun. You almost get trampled by a wine cart. The sun has long dipped below the horizon, but the villa's courtyards remain alive with flickering torchlight and the murmur of late-night revelers. The scent of crushed grapes and spilt wine hangs heavily in the warm air, mixing with the faint aroma of roasting meats and sweet pastries from the kitchens. The stone-paved pathways are slick with spilled libations, and the uneven cobbles echo the shuffle of sandals, the clatter of laughter, and the distant music that pulses like a heartbeat through the estate. You weave carefully through the throng, balancing a delicate crystal cup filled with a deep red Falernian wine, a prized vintage from the hills near Campania. Your eyes scan the crowd, alert for both opportunity and danger. In this world, a simple slip or a moment's distraction can turn into a disaster, and tonight, that danger comes barreling toward you on 4 wooden wheels. Suddenly, from the shadows of a narrow alleyway bursts a massive wine cart, its wheels groaning under the weight of countless barrels stacked precariously high. The driver, a burly, sweat-drenched slave shouting orders, wields a long whip, urging the frightened mules forward at a reckless pace. The cart sways dangerously, and you see the barrels shift, threatening to topple. Time seems to slow. Your heart races as you realize the cart is headed straight for the narrow path where you stand. There's barely room to move, the crowd packed tight with laughing guests and distracted servants. The cart's wooden wheels clatter harshly against the stones, splinters flying as one wheel scrapes perilously close to the edge. You dart forward, clutching your cup, adrenaline sharpening every sense. Your foot catches on a loose cobblestone. A jolt runs through your body as you stumble, but with a desperate twist, you regain your balance, just as the cart roars past, missing you by mere inches. The wine cart barrels onward, crushing discarded garments and overturned trays beneath its weight, the mules straining against the reins, their nostrils flaring with panic. The driver curses loudly, his face flushed with exertion and fear, as he wrestles to control the runaway beast. The guests nearby gasp and scatter, their reverie shattered by the sudden chaos. A woman screams as her elaborate headdress is knocked askew by a splashing wave of spilt wine. Servants rush to aid those trampled or soaked in the accident's wake, while others try to calm the startled animals. You breathe heavily, your pulse still pounding in your ears. Your cup, miraculously unbroken, still cradles the rich wine, a small victory amid the chaos. A young slave rushes over, eyes wide with concern. "Are you hurt, master? That cart was out of control." You shake your head, brushing dust from your tunic. "Only my pride," you reply with a wry smile. As the tension eases, the driver finally regains control, steering the cart toward a safer path away from the guests. He mutters apologies, but the damage is done, the narrow escape a stark reminder of how quickly fortune can turn. Later, As you recount the incident to a circle of amused listeners, the story takes on a life of its own, embellished with each telling, the near trampling becoming a legendary escape from the jaws of disaster. You realize that in this world, survival is as much about quick reflexes and calm nerves as it is about wit and charm. The night continues to unfold, the party's rhythm returning as if nothing had happened. But for you, the memory lingers, the thundering hooves, the screech of wood on stone, and the fragile line between celebration and catastrophe. You set the table with grapes and regret. The villa's grand dining hall breathes a heavy, expectant silence, broken only by the soft footfalls of servants and the faint crackle of oil lamps casting trembling shadows on the frescoed walls. These walls, adorned with scenes of mythic battles, gods entwined in love and wrath, seem to watch silently as you prepare the stage for the evening's spectacle. The massive wooden table stretches before you, a gleaming expanse of polished mahogany, demanding precision and grace in every detail. Tonight, the table is more than just a place to eat. It is a battleground of subtle power plays, whispered deals, and secret desires. Your hands move methodically, but your mind roams far beyond the simple task of setting plates and cups. Each motion is deliberate, the folding of napkins into perfect triangles, the placement of gleaming silverware that catches the flicker of candlelight, and the arrangement of delicate glass goblets ready to cradle the finest Falernian wine. But central to it all is the large platter of grapes, bulging clusters of deep purple and soft green, their skins taut and shining as if soaked in sunlight. The grapes are a symbol of abundance, fertility, and indulgence in Roman culture. But tonight, their sweetness is undercut by a sharp tang of regret that gnaws at your thoughts. As you gently spread the fruit across the platter, you remember the conversations overheard earlier in the villa's shadowed corridors, words dripping with promise and threat, alliances that could shift with the turn of a head or the drop of a wine cup. You pause for a moment, fingertips brushing a particularly plump cluster, feeling the coolness of the fruit. Your mind drifts to the senator who will arrive shortly, his polished smile hiding cunning schemes that could undo your carefully laid plans. Then there's the courtesan, radiant and dangerous, whose favors come with the price of whispered blackmail. The merchant, ever watchful, stands to gain from the chaos of political intrigue, his pockets heavy with ill-gotten gains. These grapes, like the guests, hold a duality, inviting and sweet, yet capable of leaving a bitter aftertaste. The act of setting the table becomes a meditation on the precarious balance between trust and betrayal, pleasure and pain. As the servants move around you with practiced grace, laying out trays of roasted lamb, stuffed dormice, and rich honey cakes, your ears catch snippets of hushed conversations, a senator's veiled threat, a whisper of rebellion, the secret price of a favored seat near the host. Each piece of gossip adds weight to the burden you carry. Your gaze falls again on the grapes. A servant stumble sends several tumbling to the floor, their skins bursting with a soft, wet pop. You bend quickly, gathering the fallen fruit, a physical reminder of the fragility of the evening's equilibrium. The spilled grapes seem to echo your inner turmoil, the certainty that tonight's feast will be marked not only by indulgence but by regret and loss. You steady yourself, arranging the remaining grapes with renewed care. The scent of the fruit mingles with the heavier odors of roasted meats and spiced wine, creating an intoxicating atmosphere thick with anticipation. The walls seem to close in as the hour approaches. The doorways will soon flood with guests whose smiles may hide daggers and whose toasts may seal fates. Thoughts crowd your mind. Will alliances hold? Will secrets spill with the wine? Will laughter turn to accusations? Your role is not just to prepare the feast but to navigate the currents beneath the surface, to read the subtle shifts in mood and power that will shape the night. Finally, the last plate is set, the candles lit, and the doors thrown open to welcome the first arrivals. The feast begins, a symphony of clinking goblets, murmured compliments, and the soft rustle of silk against stone. Yet beneath the revelry lies an undercurrent of tension, a reminder that in Rome, even the sweetest grapes can hide the sharpest thorns. As you step back, the weight of regret settles over you like a shadow, but so too does resolve. You have set the table, not only with food and drink but with intention and vigilance. Tonight, the grapes are not merely fruit, they are tokens in a game of power, and you are a player who must keep your wits as sharp as the knives laid before you. You get cursed out by a seamstress holding a fig. The morning sun filters weakly through the small window of the bustling workshop, casting long shadows over piles of vibrant cloth and half-finished garments strewn across wooden tables. The air is thick with the scent of fresh linen, beeswax, and the faint tang of fig syrup simmering in a clay pot nearby. This is the domain of Marcia, the villa's renowned seamstress, whose nimble fingers and sharp tongue are equally famous throughout the district. You enter cautiously, knowing full well that today's visit might not end in smiles. Marcia stands amidst a chaotic sea of fabric rolls and needles, her brow furrowed as she clutches a ripe fig in one hand, a fruit as sweet as it is symbolic, often used in Roman curses and charms. The fig's dark skin glistens in the morning light, a stark contrast to her fiery glare. "Finally!" she snaps, tossing the fruit onto a nearby table with a thud. "Do you think the work will sew itself, or must I unravel the knots you've tangled?" You wince. Her words cut sharper than the fine needles she wields, but you steel yourself. The villa's preparations are relentless, and Marcia's patience, like her stitches, is taut and ready to snap. Her eyes blaze as she steps closer, waving the fig like a scepter. "You promised silk for the tunics, yet here I find only coarse wool. And the embroidery threads? Frayed and mismatched. Do you take me for a fool, or is this your idea of Roman luxury?" The room seems to shrink under her tempestuous presence. Around you, other artisans pause their work, sensing the storm brewing. Marcia's voice rises, each syllable dripping with frustration and accusation, echoing off the stone walls. "By Jupiter's beard, this is an insult! A mockery of my craft! If these garments grace the noble guests, it will be my name sullied, not yours." You try to explain, blame the delays in the supply chain, the demands of the party planner, the impossible schedules, but Marcia cuts you off with a harsh laugh. "Excuses, excuses! In my time, a seamstress's honor was stitched into every hem, every fold. Not this farce." Her hand, still clutching the fig, rises as if to curse, and for a heartbeat, you half expect her to invoke some ancient magic. Instead, she shakes her head, muttering words under her breath, an old Roman curse you vaguely recognize, meant to bring bad luck to those who disrespect the craft. You swallow hard, aware that Marcia's anger is both a shield and a weapon. Beneath the fury lies a fierce pride and a deep-seated fear that the villa's decadence will trample the artistry and dignity she fights to uphold. "Listen," you say carefully, meeting her gaze. "The guests demand extravagance, but true beauty comes from skill and patience. Help me make this feast worthy, not just for their eyes, but for your hands." Marcia's glare softens, just a fraction, as she studies you. The fig on the table seems to pulse with an unseen energy, the symbol of both sweetness and sharp retribution. She sighs, the tension easing as she nods reluctantly. "Very well," But if I find another thread out of place, I swear by Mercury's wings I will curse you again, with worse than figs. A reluctant smile tugs at your lips. In this villa of excess and intrigue, even curses hold a strange affection. As you leave the workshop, the scent of figs lingers, mingling with the sounds of the villa awakening, a reminder that beneath the glittering surface, passion, pride, and a touch of superstition weave through every moment. You take a moment to breathe, then panic again. The villa buzzes relentlessly with the fevered energy of preparation, a vast and intricate machine powered by whispers, laughter, and the clatter of countless servants. You move through the chaos like a conductor trying to keep a dozen orchestras playing in perfect harmony, but even your practiced composure begins to fray at the edges. Then, suddenly, you find yourself alone, slipping away from the cacophony into a quiet courtyard nestled behind the main hall, a small sanctuary carved from stone and shadow. The courtyard stone walls rise high, wrapped in thick ivy that twists and climbs as if reaching for the sun, softening the harsh angles of the marble fountains and statues. The air here feels cooler, scented faintly with jasmine and crushed herbs from a small garden tucked in a corner. The distant sound of water trickling from the fountain's mouth creates a soothing melody, a stark contrast to the roaring energy inside the villa. You lean against the cool wall, shoulders slumping for the first time all day. Closing your eyes, you draw in a deep breath, tasting the mingled scents of earth and flowers, letting the silence wash over you. The weight of the day seems to momentarily lift, replaced by a rare stillness that feels almost sacred. For a few heartbeats, the world narrows to just this moment, the warmth of the sun on your face, the whisper of the breeze, the gentle splash of water. You imagine yourself outside of time, detached from the endless demands, the scheming guests, the impossible tasks waiting just beyond the doorway. But as the seconds tick by, the silence becomes deafening, the stillness unnatural. Your mind, unwilling to rest, drifts back to the endless litany of worries. The voices of anxious merchants hawking their wares, the last-minute changes to the seating arrangements, the delicate balance of pleasing the powerful and placating the unpredictable, all swirl in a tempest within your chest. You open your eyes, heart quickening. The calm is fragile, shattered by the first sharp pangs of anxiety. Memories flood in, the runaway wine cart narrowly missing a noble's child, the seamstress's furious curses as she held a fig like a weapon, the mercurial temper of the flute player you recently interviewed, and the distant murmur of guests arriving earlier than expected. Your breath catches in your throat. You pace the courtyard, fingers twitching, mind racing. What if the food isn't enough? What if the wine runs dry? What if the guests, powerful men and women wrapped in silk and secrets, discover your mistakes and unravel the entire evening? The list of what could go wrong grows longer with every passing moment. A sudden crash echoes from the main hall, glass shattering, the sharp scent of spilled wine filling the air. You rush inside to find a young servant staring at the wreckage, eyes wide with fear and apology. The table is littered with broken goblets, their crystal shards sparkling cruelly beneath the flickering candlelight. Your chest tightens as panic flares anew. Each broken piece seems to symbolize a fracture in your carefully constructed plans. You take a shaky breath, trying to summon the calm you found moments ago. You close your eyes tightly and count silently, 1, 2, 3, searching for a steadying anchor in the storm of your thoughts. Slowly, the tide of panic ebbs, replaced by a brittle determination. But just as relief begins to settle, your mind flings you back into the spiral of fear. The guests will arrive soon. The expectations are suffocating. Every detail matters. Every failure magnified. You are the invisible thread holding this tapestry together, and if you falter, the entire scene will unravel. You run a hand through your hair, sweat trickling down your temple. The villa is no longer a place of celebration. It has become a crucible where your nerves are tested, and your resolve forged anew. There is no room for weakness here, not when power, pleasure, and peril intertwine so tightly. Steeling yourself, you take another deep breath and step back toward the gathering storm. The music swells, footsteps echo on marble floors, and the doorways fill with silk-clad figures whose eyes gleam with ambition and desire. Your moment of peace vanishes like mist at dawn, replaced by the unrelenting pulse of the night. You are back in the arena, heart pounding, mind alert. The dance resumes, and you must not miss a step. You'd get lost in a bathhouse full of senators. The air inside the grand Roman bathhouse is thick with steam, swirling like ethereal ghosts across the marble floors and gilded mosaics. The scent of oils and perfumes hangs heavy, mingling with the earthy aroma of heated stone and fresh water. You step cautiously through the tall archways, the coolness of the shaded corridors fading behind you as you enter the warm, misty embrace of the baths. You had thought this detour would be a brief respite, a chance to regroup, gather information, or perhaps even overhear the whispered conversations that might help you in your complex role as the villa's orgy planner. But as you navigate the labyrinth of pools, changing rooms, and steam chambers, the grandeur and scale of the bathhouse overwhelm you. Soft murmurs and bursts of laughter echo from all directions. Senators, draped in their togas, recline on stone benches, their polished sandals tapping lightly as they shift in animated discussion. The sharp glint of rings and signet seals catches the flickering torchlight, evidence of power and prestige amassed through years of political maneuvering. You try to stay inconspicuous, blending into the steam like a shadow. But the layout is confusing. Corridors twist unexpectedly, staircases appear where you least expect them, and the marble floors are slippery underfoot. You turn a corner and suddenly find yourself surrounded by a group of senators deep in debate. Their voices hushed but intense. One leans in, speaking of the latest intrigues in the Senate, the rival factions jockeying for control, and the delicate alliances that hold the Republic's fragile peace together. Another senator laughs heartily, recounting a scandal that could topple a powerful patrician family if exposed. You inch backward, trying to retrace your steps, but the bathhouse seems to shift like a living maze. The steam thickens, and the sound of cascading water blurs your sense of direction. Your heart quickens. The warm waters that invite relaxation now feel like an endless ocean in which you are adrift. Then, out of the mist, a senator catches your eye and gestures with a subtle nod, mistaking you for a fellow elite. You hastily retreat, aware that your role in organizing illicit pleasures does not grant you the status to mingle openly with Rome's political titans. A sudden shout from a nearby heated pool snaps you to attention. A senator has slipped on the wet marble edge, splashing water everywhere and earning laughter from his companions. The momentary distraction gives you just enough time to slip through a narrow doorway into a quieter chamber. The chamber is lined with statues of gods and heroes, their marble faces serene amidst the swirling steam. You take a moment to steady your breath, the cold draft of the chamber brushing against your skin. Here, away from the din, you realize how deeply intertwined pleasure, politics, and power are in this world. Even in a place designed for cleansing and relaxation, the tension of Rome's endless games never fades. You wonder how many secrets have been whispered here in the shadows, how many deals forged between soaked senators and stolen moments. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, you find the exit staircase and climb upward toward the daylight, and the familiar chaos of the villa. The bathhouse's mystery lingers in your mind like the faint scent of jasmine and sandalwood. You emerge back into the open air, sweating and disoriented but wiser. Lost in the labyrinth of senators, you have glimpsed the hidden currents of power beneath Rome's glittering surface. And you know the night ahead will demand every ounce of cunning and calm you possess. You settle a fight between a mime and a fire eater. The villa's courtyard is alive with the crackle of excitement, the air thick with the mingled aromas of roasted meats, sweet wine, and burning torches. Servants and entertainers weave between lavishly decorated tables, while guests draped in silks and adorned with jewels eagerly anticipate the evening's spectacles. Among these colorful performers, two figures stand out, not for their artistry, but for the storm brewing between them. You spot them just as voices begin to rise. Caius, the renowned mime with his pale face painted in exaggerated expressions, and Marcus, the fearless fire eater known for swallowing flames that dance dangerously close to his lips. Their argument has drawn a small crowd, murmurs rippling through the guests as the tension thickens like smoke from Marcus's torches. Caius's arms are crossed, his painted smile twisted into a scowl. His eyes dart angrily beneath the white mask of powder, glaring at Marcus, who juggles a flaming torch with casual ease, flames flickering in the dying light. "You show disrespect to the art of silence," Caius snaps, his voice rising despite his profession's reliance on quiet gestures. "Your fire tricks are loud and reckless. This is a refined gathering, not a circus," Marcus snorts, blowing a plume of smoke into the air. "Refined? This is a feast of excess, not some quiet poetry recital. My flames bring thrill and awe, something your silent pantomimes could never achieve." The crowd edges closer, sensing the impending clash. The villa's orgy planner, you know that a fight between these two entertainers could quickly spiral out of control, ruining the delicate balance of the night. You step forward, hands raised in a calming gesture. "Enough," you say firmly, voice cutting through the murmurs. "Both of you bring unique talents to this celebration. Caius, your subtle gestures captivate the imagination. Marcus, your daring feats ignite the spirit. There is room here for both fire and silence." Caius huffs, but his shoulders relax slightly. Marcus lowers his torch, flames dimming but still flickering. You take advantage of the lull. "Tell me, what sparked this quarrel?" you ask gently, stepping closer so your voice is just for them. Caius's lips pressed in. "Marcus mocked my act during rehearsals, claiming no one would watch a mime at a feast. And Caius accused me of being a show-off, stealing the guests' attention." Marcus replies, his eyes narrowing. "Neither of us wants to be outshined." You nod, understanding the fragile egos behind the spectacle. This night requires collaboration, not competition. Imagine a performance where silence and fire entwine, a dance of shadows and flames that captivates all. The idea sparks curiosity in their eyes. You suggest a compromise, a joint act that blends Caius's silent storytelling with Marcus's fiery spectacle. You outline a vision where the mime's expressive movements narrate a tale of passion and danger, punctuated by bursts of fire that bring the story to life. Slowly, the two performers begin to exchange tentative smiles. You can see the wheels turning as they imagine the possibilities, their rivalry melting into creative energy. "Very well," Caius concedes. "We shall show the guests a new art, one born of silence and flame." Marcus grins, the flames in his torch leaping higher as if in agreement. "Let's make this feast unforgettable." With the dispute settled, The crowd disperses, the tension replaced by eager anticipation. You watch as the two artists rehearse their new act beneath flickering torches, the courtyard glowing with a strange, electric promise. The villa breathes anew, the night alive with danger and delight, and you, the unseen hand, have once again turned conflict into harmony. You have to test 37 types of honey cheese. The warm golden light of late afternoon filters through the villa's towering columns, casting long shadows across the intricately tiled floor of the grand dining hall. The room is fragrant with a medley of scents, fresh herbs, spiced wine, and the unmistakable sweetness of honey. But your senses are now fully occupied with a single, monumental task, the tasting and approval of 37 varieties of honey cheese, a challenge that tests not only your palate but your patience, endurance, and diplomatic skill. Before you stretches an endless parade of platters, each meticulously arranged by the villa's finest cooks and artisans. There are wedges of creamy ricotta drizzled with amber honey harvested from bees that fed on wild thyme and lavender in the hills of Campania, dense wheels of pecorino rubbed with chestnut honey from the northern forests, delicate goat cheeses paired with pine honey, their contrasting flavors set to spark conversation and delight among the guests. You steel yourself for the ordeal ahead. This is no ordinary tasting. Each bite you take carries the weight of expectation from the senators, foreign envoys, and wealthy merchants who will soon recline in these very halls. A misstep could mar the evening. A bad flavor pairing might sour alliances or become the subject of scornful gossip whispered behind elegant fans. With careful precision, you lift the first morsel to your lips, a soft, luscious cheese, its texture like a cloud melting on your tongue. The honey, light and floral, carries hints of citrus and wildflowers, lifting the cheese's mild tang into a dance of sweetness and freshness. Your eyes close briefly in appreciation. A subtle nod to the chef signals approval. As the tasting progresses, the complexity intensifies. You move from light, fresh cheeses to aged varieties with crumbly textures and sharper flavors. One particularly robust pecorino, dusted with earthy chestnut honey, challenges your palate. Its bittersweet notes provoke a moment of hesitation. You consider the guests who favor bold tastes, but you worry if this might overpower the more delicate fare on the menu. Between bites, you sip a glass of crisp Falernian wine, the acidity cleansing your palate and sharpening your senses for the next round. Your mind flickers to the night ahead, imagining how these cheeses might pair with the roasted meats, fresh fruits, and exotic spices planned for the feast. As you near the halfway point, fatigue threatens to dull your judgment. The constant sweetness begins to blend together, and your tongue feels swollen with the mingled textures of milk and honey. Yet determination steels your resolve. You remind yourself that this is more than a mere indulgence. It is a strategic act, ensuring the evening's success and your own standing among Rome's elite. A sudden interruption breaks the rhythm. A servant rushes in, accidentally knocking over a platter of cheeses. Soft gasps ripple through the room as wheels roll across the marble, scattering fragments of honey-drizzled delicacies. The tension breaks into laughter, and you join in, the momentary levity restoring your spirits. Returning to your task, you encounter some of the most unusual pairings yet. A pungent blue cheese, its veins glowing with mold, is tempered by a rare honey infused with wild fennel. The combination is daring and divisive. You debate its place on the menu, wondering if the guests will appreciate such an adventurous choice or be repelled by its boldness. You also taste cheeses glazed with honey scented by exotic spices, cinnamon, cardamom, and even a hint of pepper. These offerings bring warmth and complexity, inviting you to imagine the firelit revelry and whispered conversations that will unfold as the flavors mingle on the tongues of Rome's powerful. As the final samples approach, exhaustion threatens to overwhelm you. Your senses blur, the differences between cheeses less distinct, the sweetness more overwhelming. But you press on, knowing the importance of your role. You jot notes hastily, confident in your choices but aware that the night's success rests on these tiny decisions. Finally, the last honeyed cheese touches your lips, a soft, velvety delight infused with lavender honey so fragrant it transports you momentarily to blooming fields under the Roman sun. You savor it slowly, committing the experience to memory. Rising, you stretch stiff limbs and address the gathered cooks and assistants. Your voice carries the weight of authority and appreciation. These selections shall grace our feast, you declare, each chosen to delight and surprise, to honor the bounty of our lands and the artistry of our people. As platters are cleared and the first lamps are lit, you allow yourself a moment of quiet pride. This night, like all others you have planned, will be remembered not only for its pleasures but for the care behind every detail. Outside, the stars begin to puncture the velvet sky, promising a night of passion, intrigue, and memories yet to be forged, all sparked by the simple yet profound pleasure of honey cheese. You give a pep talk to a nervous courtesan. The villa's inner chambers are bathed in the soft, flickering light of oil lamps, their flames casting long, trembling shadows on the cool marble walls. Outside, the distant hum of the grand feast, laughter, the clinking of cups, the gentle strum of a lyre, filters through the thick stone, a vibrant world in which you and Livia will soon rejoin. But now, here in this quiet, dimly lit room, you find the young courtesan seated on an embroidered cushion, her fingers nervously twisting the delicate folds of her silk gown. Livia's usual confident grace is shadowed by uncertainty. Her dark eyes flicker with doubt and anxiety as she chews her lower lip, a faint tremor betraying the storm beneath her composed exterior. Tonight marks her debut at the most important gathering of the season, a night when senators, foreign dignitaries, and Rome's wealthiest merchants will watch her every move, judge every word, and decide if she is worthy of their favor. The stakes could not be higher. You take a gentle breath and settle beside her, lowering your voice to a calm, soothing tone. Livia, listen to me. You are not alone in this room. I am here, and so is the strength within you. This night is yours to shine, but not by hiding behind a mask of perfection. True power comes from showing your real self. She looks up, searching your face for reassurance. But what if I falter? What if my voice shakes or my words fail? These men are seasoned. They expect charm and poise, not uncertainty. You shake your head softly. None of us are without fear. Even the greatest orators stumble, the finest actors lose their lines. What matters is what comes after, the courage to keep going, the honesty that wins hearts. Your nerves tell me you care, and that care will make you genuine. You lean forward, sharing a quiet story. Remember the young dancer from last year's feast? She was so nervous she nearly froze on stage. But then she took a breath and let her true joy show. The crowd didn't just see a performer, they saw a living soul, and she captivated everyone. It's not about perfection, Livia. It's about connection. Her eyes glisten, reflecting the flickering lamps as hope begins to bloom. But what if I say something wrong? What if I offend one of the senators or fail the expectations of the house? You smile warmly, squeezing her hand. That's why I'm here. I know the guests, their tempers, their tastes, their stories. You don't need to be flawless. You need to be you. And if you stumble, I'll be there to steer you right. You take a moment to help her steady her breathing, guiding her to inhale deeply through the nose, hold, and exhale slowly through parted lips. Feel the rhythm of the night, don't fight it. Let the music, the voices, the energy flow through you. You're part of this world, not outside it. You remind her to trust her instincts, to engage with her audience not as an act, but as a real, breathing presence. Look into their eyes, listen to their laughter, and respond with the light in your heart. When you carry yourself with quiet confidence, no one will question your place here. You pause, letting your words settle before continuing. And remember, beauty is fleeting, but the impression you leave, the warmth, the kindness, the spark of intelligence, that lingers. You are more than your appearance, more than your training. You have a mind and a soul. Livia's shoulders begin to relax, the tension in her hands easing as she nods slowly, a small but genuine smile touching her lips. Thank you. Your words give me strength. I think I'm ready. You stand and adjust her jeweled hairpiece, catching the soft gleam of her renewed confidence. You'll be magnificent. And when the night unfolds, remember, no matter what happens, this moment is yours. The distant sounds of the feast grow louder, a vibrant tapestry of celebration and anticipation. You take one last look at Livia, no longer trembling, but poised, radiant, and ready to step into the swirling currents of Rome's elite society. As she moves toward the door, you feel the surge of pride that comes from knowing you've helped a soul find her wings. Tonight will be unforgettable, and in the heart of it, Livia will shine, a testament to courage, grace, and the power of a well-timed pep talk. You realize you forgot to order the swan. The day has unfolded in a whirlwind of preparations. The villa buzzes with frantic energy. Servants scurry like ants, laying out linens embroidered with golden thread, setting delicate goblets crafted from fine glass, and arranging towering candelabras that will soon blaze with flickering flame. You have been at the center of it all, orchestrating every detail with a sharp eye and a steady hand, ensuring the night's feast will be the most lavish and unforgettable spectacle Rome has ever seen. Yet now, standing in the vast kitchen, amid the clang of pots and the fragrant haze of roasting meats and simmering sauces, a sudden, chilling realization freezes your breath. The swan, the centerpiece, the ultimate symbol of opulence and extravagance, was never ordered. Your heart sinks. This is no trivial oversight. In the grand tradition of Roman banquets, the swan is more than just food. It is a statement, a marvel of excess and artistry. Its arrival signals to the assembled guests that the host commands not only wealth but a taste for the sublime. Without it, the feast will feel incomplete, even diminished. You take a quick inventory in your mind. The cooks have prepared sumptuous lamb, wild boar glazed with honey and herbs, stuffed dormice, and platters groaning with exotic fruits and nuts. But the swan, the star attraction, is missing from the tables, and no courier has arrived bearing the majestic bird. Panic bubbles beneath your composed exterior. You rush through the kitchen, barking orders, but the faces that meet you are as surprised as you are. No one recalls the swan's inclusion on the supply list. You push past the confusion and sprint toward the villa's rear courtyard, where the runners and messengers await. Has the swan been delivered? You demand breathlessly. A young servant shakes his head, eyes wide with worry. I don't believe so, sir. The supplier said nothing of it. Frustration claws at your chest. Time is slipping through your fingers like water. The guests will be arriving soon, their expectations high, their appetites eager. You consider your options. Could a swift substitution work? A goose, perhaps, or a large duck glazed with the same honey and herbs. But the swan carries a prestige no other bird can match. You make a quick decision, send runners scouring the city's markets, taverns, and noble households, hunting for any swan that might be procured in the limited hours remaining. You dispatch couriers on horseback, weaving through narrow alleys and bustling forums, hoping against hope. Meanwhile, back in the kitchen, you redirect the chefs to prepare the existing dishes with even greater care, ensuring every bite dazzles, every aroma captivates. As the sun begins its slow descent behind the hills, casting long shadows over the villa, you pace nervously. Your mind spins, picturing the faces of the senators and merchants, imagining the raised eyebrows and whispered disappointment if the swan fails to appear. Then, a commotion at the gate draws your attention. A courier, breathless and covered in dust, stumbles through with a large cage. Your heart leaps. With trembling hands, you unwrap the covering. Inside, a magnificent swan, its feathers gleaming like moonlight, calm despite the journey. Relief floods through you, washing away the fear and doubt. The swan will grace your feast after all. You command the kitchen staff to prepare the bird with utmost reverence. As the cooks work their magic, stuffing it with herbs, glazing it in honey, roasting it to a golden perfection, you can't help but smile, knowing the centerpiece of the night has been saved. Later, as guests recline on plush couches, their eyes widening at the sight of the majestic swan being carried through the hall amid murmurs of admiration, you allow yourself a moment to breathe. Tonight, despite the near catastrophe, your feast will be remembered not only for its sumptuous food but for the grace under pressure that turned crisis into triumph. The swan, resplendent and regal, glides onto the table, a symbol of your relentless dedication and the fine art of Roman extravagance. You watch a slave arrange grapes like a philosopher. The grand hall is alive with a vibrant symphony of sounds and sights. The murmurs of wealthy guests lounging on velvet cushions, the shimmering glint of silver goblets catching the soft glow of flickering lamps, and the subtle aroma of spiced wine mingling with the earthy scent of freshly gathered fruits. Yet, amid this swirling energy, your eyes fixate on a quiet corner where a lone figure moves with measured calm and deliberate grace. It is Tyro, a young slave tasked with the humble duty of arranging fruit at the banquet. But watching him, you realize this is no ordinary chore. His every movement is steeped in intention, his fingers selecting grapes with a precision and care that suggests a deeper understanding beyond mere presentation. Tyro lifts each cluster with the gentleness of a sculptor shaping clay, examining the sheen on each grape as if deciphering some secret message encoded in their smooth skins. He contemplates their colors, from deep amethyst to pale emerald, and arranges them to catch the light in a way that makes the fruit seem almost luminous, like tiny orbs of captured sunlight. You find yourself mesmerized, wondering what thoughts swirl behind those dark, focused eyes. Is Tyro silently pondering the nature of beauty, or contemplating the fleeting pleasures and inevitable decay inherent in all things? The way he pauses, tilts his head, and carefully repositions a grape suggests a philosophical mind at work, one that finds profound meaning in what others see as trivial. Around him, the other servants hustle with urgent purpose, voices sharp with stress, but Tyro remains serene, a calm center in a storm of frantic activity. His quiet concentration, you suspect, is his refuge, a way to assert control and dignity in a life defined by servitude and the whims of masters. You step closer, not wanting to disturb his meditative state, but curious. Tyro, you say softly, your arrangement is unlike any I've seen. What do you think about as you work? His eyes meet yours, flickering with surprise and then softening into a thoughtful smile. Master, I am not simply placing grapes on a platter. Each grape carries a story of the earth that nourished the vine, the hands that harvested them under the sun's harsh gaze, the journey from distant fields to this table. To scatter them carelessly would be to forget those stories. You nod, intrigued. So this is an act of remembrance? Yes, he replies quietly. An act of honor and respect. In this small task, I reclaim some measure of freedom. I shape order and beauty in a world where much is beyond my control. You ponder this. Here, in the grand spectacle of the feast, a world dominated by power and luxury, it is this humble act of arranging grapes that holds a subtle rebellion, a meditation on existence. As Tyro works, you observe the subtle harmony in the fruit's arrangement, the way clusters flow like gentle waves, the interplay of colors and shadows, the delicate balance between abundance and restraint. The arrangement does not scream opulence but whispers it, a quiet, elegant beauty that invites reflection rather than awe. Guests occasionally glance toward the fruit, noting its pleasing appearance. Some offer compliments to the servants, unaware of the philosophical depth hidden behind such a simple display. You smile inwardly, appreciating the invisible layers of meaning beneath the surface. Minutes stretch into an hour as you watch Tyro, his focus unwavering. His movements are slow, deliberate, almost ritualistic, as if each grape placed as a small prayer or an affirmation of life's fleeting sweetness. You recall the writings of Roman philosophers who mused on the ephemerality of pleasure and the inevitability of change. In a strange way, Tyro's work embodies those very ideas. The knowledge that beauty, like the grapes themselves, is transient, precious because it will soon fade. Curious, you ask? Do you ever think about your own place in this world while arranging these grapes? Tyro's gaze drifts to the ceiling for a moment, then back to you. I do. Sometimes I imagine that my life is like these grapes, small and seemingly insignificant, but part of a greater whole. Just as the arrangement matters to the feast, so too does my presence matter, even if it is unseen by many. His words resonate deeply, stirring in you a new respect for this quiet soul who finds meaning in servitude. The feast, with all its grandeur, is shaped not only by the powerful but by those like Tyro, whose unseen efforts infuse it with subtle grace. As the night wears on and the feast reaches its peak, Tyro's arrangement remains untouched, a silent testament to patience, philosophy, and the dignity hidden in humble tasks. Watching him, you realize that true elegance is not just in display but in the mindful presence behind it, a lesson as timeless as the city itself. You find yourself inspired, pondering the small moments of beauty in your own life, grateful for this unexpected glimpse into a philosopher's mind hidden in the hands of a slave. You light the lamps as the sky turns pink. The oppressive heat of the Roman day finally begins to relent as the sun dips lower, flooding the sky with a breathtaking cascade of pinks, purples, and delicate oranges. You stand on the marble terrace of the villa, feeling the gentle evening breeze sweep through your hair and tug lightly at the folds of your tunic. Around you, the sprawling gardens grow quieter, the loud buzz of daytime insects replaced by the soft chirping of crickets and the distant cooing of doves settling in for the night. Before you lies your task, lighting the lamps scattered throughout the villa to prepare the grand feast for nightfall. In your hands you carry a bundle of glass oil lamps, fragile yet vital. The lamps' clear surfaces catch the dying light of day, waiting silently to be kindled into warm, flickering flames that will chase away the encroaching darkness. As you move from room to room, the transformation begins. The once dark corridors and vast halls soften under the golden glow of the newly lit lamps. Each flame dances like a tiny spirit, casting flickering shadows that ripple across frescoed walls, where painted gods and mortals seem to come alive in the shifting light. You pause often, your breath steady but your mind racing, aware that this simple act, lighting lamps, is an ancient ritual charged with meaning. This is not just preparation. It is a sacred transition from the harsh clarity of day into the mysterious intimacy of night. You think of the Romans' belief that dusk is a time when the veil between worlds thins, when the gods walk among mortals, and when secrets, long buried by daylight, are whispered into existence. You light another lamp, its flames springing to life with a quiet hiss. Setting it carefully in a bronze sconce, you step back and admire how the flickering light brings warmth and softness to the cold stone, inviting the guests to relax, to let down their guard. Outside, the garden paths are similarly transformed. Small lamps line the hedges and flower beds, turning the winding walkways into rivers of gold. You imagine guests later wandering these paths, their conversations hushed, smiles lingering, and fingers lightly brushing over cool leaves as the scent of jasmine and night-blooming roses fills the air. Your thoughts wander briefly to the hostess, a woman whose grand vision for this night relies on the smallest details, each one orchestrated with precision. You wonder if she, too, watches from afar as the lamps are lit, her heart beating faster with anticipation. Perhaps she feels, as you do, the electric promise that the night holds, of laughter, whispered confessions, and maybe even moments of unexpected tenderness. Suddenly, a soft footstep breaks your reverie. Livia, the hostess's trusted attendant, appears, balancing a delicate tray heavy with figs glazed in honey, clusters of ripe olives, and sweet almonds dusted with crushed herbs. Her face brightens with a smile as she takes in the warm light bathing the room. "Your hands bring the night to life," she murmurs, her voice almost a whisper. "Without your care, this evening would lack its soul." You nod, humbled yet proud. The endless planning, the pressures, the sleepless nights, moments like these make it worthwhile. You are not merely a servant of the feast. You are its keeper of mood and magic. As you continue your work, the sky outside deepens from pink to violet, stars prickling the velvet expanse above. The lamp's flames flicker but do not falter, steadfast sentinels against the dark. You pause again at a window, gazing out at the horizon where the last glow of daylight fades and the night claims dominion. Your mind drifts to the stories you've heard since childhood, of how Roman families would light lamps not just for celebration, but as protection against the unseen spirits that roamed at night. In this light, your task takes on new weight. You are a guardian, lighting the way for safety, joy, and the sacred unknown. Finally, with every lamp aglow, you retreat to a shadowed balcony overlooking the festivities below. The villa hums with life, voices raised in toasts, the delicate clinking of cups, the soft strumming of a lyre, and the murmur of secrets exchanged behind fluttering fans. The night has fully fallen, and you feel a deep, quiet satisfaction. In lighting these lamps, you have not only illuminated the space but also the hearts of all who will gather here. You have woven the first threads of an evening tapestry, one filled with warmth, beauty, and the tantalizing promise of stories yet to unfold. You breathe in the cool night air, scented with cedar, jasmine, and the faint hint of roasted chestnuts from the kitchens. The lamp's golden glow casts long shadows, and you know that though the night is young, its magic has already been set in motion. You whisper instructions like a war general. The night has fully settled now, thick and heavy as velvet, embroidered with the distant sparkle of stars above the Roman villa. Yet inside, a different kind of storm is quietly brewing, one of anticipation, nerves, and meticulous coordination. You stand in the shadowed corner of the inner courtyard, feeling the cool stone beneath your feet, your heartbeat a steady drum in your chest. Tonight you are no mere servant or planner. For these few hours, you become the commanding general of a delicate, unpredictable battle, the orchestration of an orgy that must run without flaw. Your voice, though low and urgent, carries the authority of centuries of military discipline and precision. You whisper instructions to the various key players, the musicians, the wine servers, the attendants responsible for comfort and discretion. Each person looks to you with a mix of respect and slight apprehension, recognizing the immense pressure on your shoulders. Caius, the lyre players must ease into the melody gently, no sudden crescendos. Tonight, subtlety is your weapon, you murmur, eyeing the stoic man whose fingers hover above the strings, poised but tense. And you, Julia, you continue, turning to a tall, nimble woman who manages the flow of food and drink. Keep the amphory flowing, but be watchful. No one should overindulge too soon. We need guests alert and engaged, not drowned in wine before the real festivities begin. Your words are precise, but your mind races faster. You think of the vast complexity of the event, dozens of bodies, passions, egos, and secrets all colliding in the same space. To maintain order is to balance on a knife's edge. One wrong move, one misstep, and chaos could erupt, turning a night of pleasure into a scandal. The courtyard bustles quietly with attendants and servants, all moving with practiced grace, following your whispered commands. You watch as lanterns are adjusted to cast just the right amount of light, enough to reveal the flicker of desire in eyes, but not so much as to strip away mystery. You remind a group of attendants to keep a gentle hand on the doors, ensuring entrances and exits are smooth, unobtrusive. As you issue your instructions, your voice drops even lower, almost conspiratorial. Remember, discretion is paramount. No loud voices, no accusations. Tonight's success depends on trust. The air is thick with tension, but also with anticipation. The courtyard is an intricate stage, and you, the general, must anticipate every move, every ripple in the tide of pleasure. You catch a glimpse of Marcus, the gladiator from earlier, now nervously adjusting his tunic near the edge of the garden. You pull him aside with a firm but gentle grip, your voice low but steady. Marcus, remember the etiquette I explained. This is not the arena. Control is strength here, not brute force. If you feel overwhelmed, seek me immediately. Understood? He nods, swallowing hard, clearly grateful for the guidance. You sense his anxiety, the same that you have wrestled with countless times before commanding this kind of event. Yet you also see something else, a flicker of excitement beneath the fear, a spark waiting to be kindled. Moving quickly, you check on the musicians once more. The flute player with the sharp attitude is practicing her scales nearby, her lips pursed and eyes gleaming with a fierce determination. You offer a small nod of approval, signaling her to begin softly when the moment comes. The mingling sounds of quiet conversations, delicate laughter, and the occasional clink of cups fills the air. It is a symphony of calm before the crescendo, and you savor this moment, the pulse before the storm. Your mind drifts to the countless nights you've spent mastering this delicate dance. You recall how similar it is to leading soldiers into battle, the same need for timing, strategy, and understanding human nature. But here, the battlefield is one of pleasure and desire, and victory means harmony and satisfaction rather than conquest. Suddenly, a soft voice breaks your concentration. It is Livia, the hostess's attendant, her expression serious yet trusting. All is prepared. The guests will arrive shortly, she whispers. You take a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavily on your shoulders. You nod, steeling yourself for the coming hours. As the first guests step into the courtyard, their faces lit by the soft glow of lanterns and anticipation, you remain in the shadows, a silent commander directing the ebb and flow of desire, pleasure, and secrecy. Every whispered instruction you give is a thread weaving the tapestry of this unforgettable night. And as you move among them, your voice barely above a breath, you know that the success of tonight, this smooth dance of bodies and spirits, depends on your unwavering control and subtle command. Because in this world, behind the grand facade of opulence and excess, you are the true power, the general who wins not by force, but by the quiet strength of whispered orders and meticulous planning. You dodge a drunken poet and a flying loaf. The stars hang low over the villa now, pale pinpricks above a city that refuses to sleep. The feast is entering that dangerous hour when propriety begins to sag, like a garland left too long in the sun, sagging under its own sweetness. Everything smells of heat and oil and wine, and your skin feels sticky with effort. Somewhere deep in your spine, exhaustion creaks. You've survived a day of arranging grapes into impossible shapes, arguing about cheese with retired generals, and pretending not to notice that the hostess changed her entire outfit 3 times due to mood fluctuations. But none of that has prepared you for what is now unfolding in the middle of the triclinium. You hear the unmistakable sound of a man shouting a metaphor about Jupiter's thighs. You freeze. And then you hear it again, longer, louder, far too confident. You glance toward the fountain and, of course, there he is, Publius Velleius, self-declared poet laureate of every event he's ever been invited to, including this one. Shirt slightly stained with spiced pear reduction. Laurel wreath crooked. Eyes wide. Voice slurred. Standing on a cedarwood serving table as if it were a stage sent by the gods. He raises a cup, some mixture of wine and what appears to be melted cheese, and proclaims, "Let no mortal deny the heart of verse! For if Bacchus shall bless me, even my crumbs shall echo eternity." You don't know what that means. No one does. A slave nervously retreats with a bowl of pickled eggs before he becomes part of the metaphor. Publius gestures broadly, and in doing so, accidentally flings a half-eaten loaf of barley bread in your general direction. You duck purely on instinct. It sails over your shoulder, narrowly missing the noblewoman who just moments ago was telling someone she descended from Venus. The loaf hits the harpist. A sour chord twangs through the room. You straighten up slowly. People are starting to notice. Some laugh. Others look alarmed. One person claps, assuming this is performance art. You glide forward, quickly, efficiently, weaving between reclining guests like a shadow. The stone tiles are warm underfoot. The smell of crushed mint leaves lingers near the wine urns. You make eye contact with the harpist. He shrugs. He is used to suffering for his art. By the time you reach the poet, he's begun stomping lightly on the table to punctuate each stanza. The table is not built for this. Neither is your patience. You raise a calming hand. "Publius," you murmur, "the muses do not speak over lentil platters." He leans toward you dramatically. "But they dine upon them, friend." You flash your best tight-lipped event manager smile. "Would the muses not prefer to recline in the peristyle, among the columns and night air?" The acoustics. Ah, the peristyle, he cries. A temple of verse. Led me, brave companion. He almost falls off the table. You catch him by the elbow. It feels like you're holding onto a wet sponge wrapped in poetry. Slowly, steadily, you lead him away, past amused guests and alarmed staff. One of the torchbearers gives you a small, respectful nod. You've done it again. You deposit the poet beside a column. A young servant offers him olives. He accepts them as if they were holy relics. You sigh. But before you can even begin to bask in this brief success, you hear something else. Where is the honeyed boar? You look up. Across the courtyard, a minor senator, flushed, barefoot, and wearing someone else's cloak, is brandishing a bronze spoon like a dagger. You make a mental note to assign someone to follow him in shifts. Then, a goat bleats from the hallway. A real goat. You'd requested no animals. But someone always brings a goat. The goat has something tied to its horn. A streamer, perhaps? No. A fig branch. Back in the dining area, someone has decided now is the moment to juggle. Badly. You grab a pitcher of diluted wine and begin circling the guests, topping off cups, murmuring pleasant nothings, steadying elbows. Smiling so much your jaw hurts. You ride a cushion. You extinguish a candle that's burned too low. You remind a slave to replace the perfumed oil. You retrieve a sandal from the fountain. You dodge another flying object, a fig this time, sticky and soft. And still, the night hums on. Your hands are tired. Your eyes burn slightly. You long for sleep, or silence, or even a dark room with a bowl of olives and nobody talking about Mars thighs. But this is your purpose. You are the whisper that keeps the villa from tipping into madness. The invisible hand that ensures the wine flows, the guests glow, and the madness stays beautiful, just short of breaking. Somewhere behind you, Publius begins reciting again, this time seated, his hand clutching an olive as though it were a tiny globe. You take a deep breath. You smile. You turn toward the next crisis. Because this is Rome. And you, somehow, are the only thing keeping it from turning entirely into a drunken goat circus. You clean up a minor vomiting incident with dignity. The scent of roast peacock and candied lotus petals hangs thick in the air, curling softly between torchlight and laughter. Somewhere in the distance, a servant is refilling goblets with sweetened wine steeped in cinnamon and elderflower. The sky above the villa pulses gently with stars, and for one fragile moment, everything seems to be under control. And then it happens. Not loudly, not dramatically, but unmistakably. A soft, wet glurp sound, followed by an awkward silence, followed by the tiniest of gasps. Your head turns before your body does. You've learned to recognize these moments with the instincts of a hunted animal. The gods of banquets never allow peace to last more than a few minutes. And now, they demand your composure once more. Near the edge of the mosaic fountain, the one with the sea nymphs and chipped dolphin tail, you spot the source, a young guest slouched on a bronze-legged couch, his tunic slightly rumpled, one sandal dangling from his foot, his face the color of boiled parchment. He is attempting to look dignified, but he is also trying, and failing, not to slump directly into the puddle beside him. It is, without question, vomit. Pale, watery, flecked with grape skin and regret. And it is on a hand-embroidered cushion. The nearby guests are trying to pretend it isn't there. One of them begins speaking to a bowl of olives with sudden intensity. Another leans toward a brazier with urgent interest in ash patterns. A third tries to inhale into their own goblet. You recognize all the classic avoidance strategies. You place your tray of honeyed figs down with surgical precision. You inhale. And then you glide. Not walk. Not rush. You glide, like an offering carried by wind. You kneel beside the young man, perhaps a minor senator's son, or worse, a poet, and offer him a dampened cloth as if you are presenting a sacred relic. He takes it slowly, his expression dazed with wine and shame. He mumbles something like, "It came out of nowhere." You smile kindly. "Of course it did." With a quick glance and a nod, one of your more competent slaves appears with a small wicker basket and a clay jar. The protocol is in motion. You've prepared for this, not this exactly, but things of this flavor. Literally and figuratively. The cushion is lifted, turned inward to hide the damage, and spirited away as if it never existed. In its place, you lay a fresh throw, dark, absorbent, modest. Someone else will scrub that cushion with vinegar, sand, and crushed lavender before sunrise. You sprinkle a small blend of rose petals and dried basil at the base of the couch, your emergency mixture, the one designed specifically to overpower bile. The scent lifts instantly, floral, clean, calming. A bowl of lemon water is placed near the young man's elbow, accompanied by a few dry crackers, which he will ignore but be comforted by. You offer him a new goblet of watered wine, not to drink, but to hold. To appear rebalanced. To remind others this is no longer an emergency. Just a man with an odd moment and a reliable staff. The nearby guests begin to breathe again. Someone resumes their story about a dream involving a talking boar. You catch a few nods. The laughter resumes. One of the flutists hits a cheerful note by accident, and then plays it again on purpose. You stand. Your robe brushes the floor as you do, just lightly enough to suggest grace, but heavily enough to hide the stain that nearly touched your sandal. You make a slow, deliberate turn around the room, checking plates, candle heights, the distribution of garum sauce. The illusion of elegance must be restored immediately. Your heart is still racing, not from the vomit, but from the delicate balance of perception. If a single guest had screamed, if a cushion had been flipped, if someone had slipped. But no one did. No one will remember this. Which means you did your job. You take a small sip from your own cup, cool water infused with a slice of date, and let it rest on your tongue. Behind you, the young man coughs once, then settles back. A slave begins fanning him slowly. Across the courtyard, someone announces that the swan will be served early due to an omen. You sigh quietly and ready yourself. Because the feast is far from over. And the next disaster is probably already walking toward you with a wine cup, a secret, and no shoes. You lie about how well it's going. You are smiling again. You have been smiling for so long that your cheeks have started to feel like wet clay left out in the sun, cracking at the corners, but still holding their shape by sheer will. You stand at the edge of the peristyle garden, the torches hissing and flickering above you like nervous thoughts, and you say the same thing you've said 12 times already tonight. Everything's going wonderfully. And it is a lie. A beautiful, measured, practiced lie. The kind you have perfected over the course of 100 late feasts and 700 near catastrophes. You say it again, this time to a senator's wife who looks at you like she wants to peel off your skin and wear it as a better expression of control. Oh, absolutely, you add. We're slightly ahead of schedule, in fact. Behind you, a courtesan bursts into tears. Somewhere in the atrium, the chorus has decided to start singing an erotic hymn early, And it's louder than you instructed, far too loud, but you nod at the senator's wife like you're basking in the success of it all. You even widen your eyes in faux surprise as if to say, "Isn't it enchanting how effortlessly everything unfolds?" She narrows her eyes. She doesn't believe you, but she wants to. And that's enough. You excuse yourself with a bow and pivot, fast, but not too fast, making your way around the sculpted hedges like a general inspecting a battlefield of extremely hydrated troops. You pass the olive tray, half-eaten, the mulled wine stand, sticky, and the spiced chickpea heap, congealing. A young servant stares blankly into the distance with fig paste on his tunic, and no memory of how it got there. You pause just long enough to refold a napkin with performative grace and whisper to another slave to check the figs for bees again. He nods like you've just passed him the fate of Rome itself. A flute player catches your sleeve. "Where's my second verse?" she hisses. You lie. The consul's cousin asked for a pause. He was overcome with emotion. She squints. "He's asleep." "Moved by beauty," you say. You move on. Next, the vomit corner. Sanitized, perfumed, replaced. Good. The fig-throwing seamstress from earlier now appears to be deep in conversation with the very gladiator who mistook a silver spoon for a weapon. The courtesan who cried has been handed a peacock feather, and is now seductively pretending to fan herself. You are spinning plates, metaphorically, yes, but also literally. There are 6 golden plates on loan from a merchant who thinks this event is a good investment. If one gets stolen, you owe him your bathtub. You round a column and nearly walk into a drunk poet. Again. He opens his arms as if to embrace you, or perhaps recite something. You place a candied almond in his mouth before he can speak and redirect him toward the cushions. He smiles. You nod. You keep walking. And then you hear the phrase that no host ever wants to hear. "Is this it?" A guest. Possibly named Lucilla. She's squinting at a plate of lentils like it insulted her ancestors. You do not sigh. You do not scream. You float toward her like a benevolent storm cloud. "Oh no," you purr. "This is the beginning of the 3rd course. The finale is still to come." She perks up. "Does it involve fire?" You nod vaguely. "And swans?" Her pupils dilate slightly. She smiles. "I love this party." You nod again and move quickly before she thinks of asking which swans. Behind the scenes, you duck into the preparation alcove where a sweating cook is frantically shaving honeycomb into little floral shapes. Another one is crying over a burnt pan of chestnuts. Someone has just dropped a tray of olives, and they roll in all directions like accusations. "How are we?" one whispers. You say it again. "Perfect. Keep it up." It is a lie, of course. But it is the kind that keeps things going. A golden lie. A glowing lie. The kind you carry in both hands like a fragile bowl of truffle paste through a room of philosophers, poets, slaves, lovers, and unpredictable poultry. You step out again into the music, the sweat, the illusion. The crowd roars with wine and delight. A dancer twirls dangerously close to the fire basin. Someone has started telling a story about how they once slept with a god disguised as a cypress tree. You nod at it all, parting the chaos like a sea of silk, and whisper to yourself, "Everything's going wonderfully." And in that moment, it almost is. You watch the moonlight catch on spilled oil. It's late. Later than late. That hour of soft unraveling, when even the loudest guests begin to slur into silence. and the firelight sags like old linen. The feast has turned into something slower, darker, dreamlike. A few musicians play, but lazily now, strings barely plucked, rhythms stretched like wax in heat. The flutist from earlier is slumped against a marble satyr, eyes closed, pipe forgotten in her lap. And you are still awake. You are still on your feet. You step into the back corridor, the one behind the main dining chamber, and finally let your shoulders drop. The stone under your sandals is still warm from the torches, but the air is cool now. Quiet, except for the faint crackling of lamps and the distant, rhythmic laughter of someone telling a story for the 5th time. You don't need to check who. You already know the ending. You reach for the amphora of lamp oil to refill the hallway braziers. Routine. Hands steady. Eyes half closed. But your foot stops short. There it is. A puddle. Thin, iridescent, lazy as a sigh. Oil, spilled earlier, maybe by a slave rushing to carry wine, maybe by you, hours ago. You can't remember now. You've walked this hallway 20 times tonight. Maybe more. But only now, does the light shift just right. You crouch slowly. And you watch. The oil doesn't move, but it shimmers, slow silver on deep black stone, catching the moonlight that pours in through the high lattice window. The shades ripple gently with every flicker of the torches nearby. It looks like spilled stars. Like a night sky that has dripped down to the floor unbothered. Unashamed. For a long moment you don't move. You just exist there. A single, quiet figure in a hallway full of wine-sick air and forgotten sandals. Watching moonlight kiss a mistake. You should wipe it up. You will wipe it up. But not yet. Not this second. You let yourself take in the beauty of it, the absurd, delicate beauty of something gone wrong. The way silver threads the oil like veins in a marble statue. The way your own reflection appears in it, stretched and strange and peaceful for the first time in hours. You think about the day. The madness. The sound of grapes squelching under sandals. The feel of courtesan's breath on your shoulder as they begged you to dim the lamps just so. The splash of wine on brocade. The shriek of a goat that definitely wasn't supposed to be there. The vomit. The honey cheese. The taste of panic that only you noticed. And now this. A puddle. A mistake. A small, shimmering silence. You exhale. And for the first time since the sun fell behind the rooftops of Rome, you feel something close to stillness. Not peace, exactly, but stillness. A quiet knowing. A small voice that says, you did it. The worst is over. You blink. The light shifts again. The reflection fades slightly as the torch flame gutters beside you. You finally move. You tear a piece of linen from the cleaning bundle and kneel slowly. You wipe the oil, careful, smooth. Gentle, like closing the eyes of a sleeping child. No one will ever know this moment happened. No one will smell the faint sweetness of olive oil warmed by torchlight. No one will remember the ripple of moonlight along stone. But you will. And somehow, that feels like enough. You rise. You smooth your robe. You straighten the nearest candle with an almost ceremonial grace. And then, without sound, you return to the night. Because guests are still breathing. Someone has probably fallen asleep in the fountain again. And tomorrow the floors will need scrubbing, and the swan bones must be buried discreetly, and the perfume merchant will want a full report. But for now, just oil. Just moonlight. Just you. still standing. You recount every mistake while folding a toga. You are folding a toga. It is not your toga. You don't own one nice enough to require this level of care. This belongs to the host, or the cousin of the host, or perhaps that smug equestrian who arrived uninvited but was too handsomely perfumed to turn away. You no longer remember. It doesn't matter. All that matters is the toga is long. Endless, even. A stream of off-white that you keep folding and folding, as if it might eventually disappear. Your hands move without thought. Your mind, however, your mind is very much awake. The fabric rustles. Your breath is slow. And as the folds fall over one another, your mistakes come back, one by one, in painful, exacting detail. First, you forgot to reheat the honeyed wine. An easy task. A basic gesture. And yet, in the chaos of the chorus arriving early, the goat wandering into the kitchens, and the fig-throwing incident, it slipped your mind. You remembered it just as you passed the atrium and saw the look on the merchant's wife's face as she sipped it lukewarm. She didn't say a word, but her silence was an entire Senate speech. Fold. Then, the seating arrangement. It had taken you 2 days and 3 diagrams. And still, somehow, Senator Pompilius was placed beside his former lover and his current political enemy. You had hoped the wine would dull their senses. It didn't. They compared notes. Loudly. Over shellfish. You spent 25 minutes pretending to find them more cushions while they whispered about poison. Fold. The gladiator, oh gods, the gladiator, had asked what orgy etiquette was, and you, fool that you are, tried to explain it in terms of military discipline. You even used the phrase, strategic entry. He repeated it. Loudly. Guests laughed. You smiled like it was intentional. Fold. You missed the hand signal from the mime. Twice. So the fire eater burst in early, scaring 3 elderly nobles and knocking over a tray of cheese. The entire 5th act of the sensual pantomime was off-tempo. A courtesan wept backstage. You mouthed an apology, but she wouldn't look at you. Fold. You forgot to replace the grapes. Fold. You told the senator's wife that her peacock stole the show. She corrected you. It was a pheasant. You said, "They're so similar." She said, "Not in taste." Fold. You forgot to bribe the doorman, so 2 bards showed up. Neither left. They still haven't. You can hear one tuning a lyre somewhere behind the triclinium. At this hour. For whom? Fold. You left the Mumo puddle longer than was probably safe. Fold. You let yourself smile for too long when someone called the event surprisingly tasteful. You forgot the most important rule. Never believe the compliment until the next day. Fold. You bit into the wrong figure. The one you saved earlier. It was overripe. You smiled through it anyway. Fold. You panicked for 22 seconds during a 3-minute pause when all the guests were chewing, no one was speaking, and a senator's child was balancing olives on his cousin's head in full view of a provincial governor. Fold. You whispered the wrong name when announcing the toast. No one corrected you. That was worse. Fold. You dropped a candied date. You tried to pick it up. You accidentally kicked it under the table instead. It's probably still there. Waiting. Fold. And here you are. Still folding. The toga drapes over your forearms like surrender. Your fingers smooth its last edge with the softness of someone handling a holy object. It is not perfectly folded. You've done better. But it will do. You place it gently onto the chair. The moonlight is gone now, replaced by the dull gray-blue of a sky ready to let go. Birds are starting to think about making noise. One guest snores in the peristyle garden, cradling a half-eaten plum. You pass by him in silence. You reach the end of the corridor, where a mirror waits, polished bronze, hung too high to flatter. You look into it anyway. You look tired. But beneath that, a flicker of something else. Something strange. Satisfaction? No. Something quieter. Completion. You inhale. You exhale. You mutter, "It's done!" though you know better. You know there's cleaning to come, and reports to write, and 1,000 retellings of tonight's chaos waiting to be exaggerated at morning markets and in the steamy echo chambers of bathhouses. But for now, you have folded the toga. You have survived the evening. You remember every mistake. And somehow, impossibly, you are still standing. You fall asleep to the sound of distant laughter. It is over. The halls are quiet now, quiet in that special way that only comes after the final torch is snuffed and the last wine jug is overturned, dripping its final sticky drops onto the mosaic floor. Somewhere, a sandal lies abandoned like a forgotten thought. A silk sash hangs limply from the corner of a statue's arm. A platter of crushed pomegranates glows faintly in the moonlight, half finished, wholly ignored. And you are finally still. You do not remember lying down. One moment you were collecting scattered rose petals from the floor of the triclinium. The next you were sitting on the marble bench behind the servants' cloister. Then lying. Then exhaling. Then this. The stars above are blurred, not by clouds, but by the sheer weight of your eyelids. You're not sure if you're looking at sky or ceiling anymore. You've folded so many things tonight, togas, napkins, yourself. Even your spine feels gently pleated. Your body is sore in strange places. Your forearms ache from balancing trays. Your jaw hurts from the careful, ceaseless smile you wore like armor. Your ankles throb with the rhythm of too many footsteps, too many directions shouted from too many mouths. There's a grape stem in your pocket. You do not know why. You will not investigate. You are too tired to dream, and too awake to sleep, yet. And then you hear it. Somewhere in the distance. Soft. Muffled. Almost imaginary. Laughter. Familiar, in the way that water is familiar. Gentle, like wind through olive branches. The laughter of someone still recounting the night's ridiculousness, the gladiator's confusion, the flying loaf. The cheese debacle. The mime. The mime. You smile, barely. Just with the corners of your mouth. You wonder if they're talking about you. Probably not. Hopefully not. But maybe. A little. And that's all right. You feel the stone beneath you, now warmed from your own body. The fabric of your tunic smells faintly of rosewater and ash. Your hands are loose on your stomach, fingers curled around the memory of a goblet long since emptied. The laughter fades slightly, drifting upward with the cooling air. You close your eyes fully. And this time, you stay there. You do not get up to check the linens. You do not count the figs. You do not write tomorrow's list. You do not even care where the flute ended up. You simply listen to the laughter grow fainter, fainter still, until it becomes the same hush as wind over marble. Until it's all gone, the chatter, the smells, the shimmer, the work. And then, you're asleep. Not because you earned it, though you did. Not because it's safe, though it is for now. but because there's nothing left to carry. Because, at last, Rome can manage without you for a few hours. Because you are a ghost in your own story now, watching from above, drifting downward into silence like a fallen fig leaf, like a slow breath, like an ending. And in that ending there is peace. And in that peace, finally, rest.